And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside SPD off. Second, SPD off. It's orange!
Orange 45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If the methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. Keep that. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening, everyone. It has been an exciting week for SpaceX, and there's a lot to talk about, so we'll be here for more than just a launch today. But of course, the main event is Starlink Group 6-76, which we are just about under an hour away from lifting off from Launch Complex 39A at the Cape. I will be your host for today's mission. I am Trevor Sesnick, a writer here at NSF, and thank you all very much for joining us tonight. I see the 5x5s in chat, but joining me is Ryan Weber. Ryan, welcome to the stream.
Well, hi everyone. How's it going? Yeah, I normally don't do Starlinks, but here I am. Got to change it up every once in a while.
Yeah, can't just talk about Starship. And then we also have Julia Bergeron joining us. Julia, how's it going?
It is going swellingly. It's a beautiful night here out at Cape. Clear skies, calm waters, launch pads in front of me, and this is the first time I've been on a stream with Ryan. So hello.
How's it going?
And then bringing us these views from the field is the wonderful D Wise, and producing the stream is the wonderful Kevin Michael Reed. So make sure you thank them, as always, for pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, capturing the photons, all of the important bits to bring these live views. But Ryan, can you start us off with just an overview of what we will be seeing on today's mission?
Yeah, so as Trevor was saying, it's Starlink Group 6-76. It's another Starlink mission. So basically, it's going to be 24 V2 mini Starlink sats going into 43 inclination orbit. It's a booster. We got booster 1078-15 right now. Current turnaround for this booster is about 27 days, 5 hours or so. And it unfortunately won't be the ridiculous turnaround we had last time, but we're still under that month range. So SpaceX is definitely plugging along with what their with their turnaround times and everything, especially with the large fleet that they've got.
Yeah, no kidding. We'll definitely talk more about that turnaround record after we finish going over today's launch. But Julia, how is the weather looking?
Well, the weather is looking just as wonderful as it was last night. We have clear skies, which for fans of lovely loud sounds, we should get good audio for you tonight. The sound will travel. Even the lagoon in front of me is glassy today. So I'm looking forward to a beautiful star-filled launch.
Very cool. And yeah, this will be going, as Ryan said, to a 43-degree orbit, launching to the southeast, if I am not mistaken. Yep, there it is. There you can see the blue pin. That is the landing location, which is a short fall of gravitas. And then that green pin is fairing recovery. Booster recovery is about a little over 600 kilometers downrange, and fairing recovery is a little over 700. But yeah, I think we should talk about. Oh yeah, thank you, Kevin, for reminding me of the reentry zone for the second stage. There is the reentry zone of where second stage will splash down. So following the 2 burns that it'll do for those Starlink satellites, it will perform a third burn to intentionally re-enter in this predefined zone, and that makes sure that there's no stage 2 debris hitting anyone, and it's just safely splashing down in the ocean. But with that, I think we should start talking about some of the really, really exciting things that SpaceX has already accomplished this week. And it all started off, I believe it was Starlink 913 that had the first payload fairing have to fly for a 21st time. So that was the most number of times that a payload fairing has flown. And then on the next launch, Starlink Group 12 1, SpaceX set a new turnaround record for a booster. That booster flew or was turned around in under 2 weeks. It was 13 days, 12 hours, and 34 minutes between launches, which is over a week faster than the previous turnaround record. Which, Ryan, you work
It's,
on aircraft. How insane is that?
I mean, the fairing recovery is kind of nuts because, I mean, just think of the cost savings. Those are specially designed carbon fiber fairings. Those things probably cost a couple million a pop to build. Um, and they're able to reuse one at least 21 times. Who knows how long they can reuse it for? They've almost caught up to booster numbers, which is nuts to say, anyways, because like they're just it's kind of nuts to how much they're getting out of these the components on Falcon. It just goes to show, and it kind of helps them save the money along the way, especially with launching as much as they are. It's because just imagine if they were throwing away fairings every single one of these Starlink launches. They launch it's every 2.5 days right now is the rate, and if they were throwing away $10 million every time, 10 million more dollars, I should say, because they do throw away the second stage, that just would start adding up. So it's a big accomplishment to keep doing that. And then turning around the booster, I mean, under 2 weeks? So it's 4 or 5 days to bring it back on the drone ship and get it back into the hangar. I would assume like 3 or 4 days for refurbishment, then stick the second stage on, get it to the pad, and integrate the payload and go vertical. All in that time, like that's pretty nuts. It really goes to show SpaceX is understanding how their rocket works, basically, like understanding what they need to look at, what they don't need to look at, and everything else. It's just impressive to watch.
Yeah, and there you can see on the right, those are 2 fairing halves. I believe that's on Doug, Gage said. Bob, sorry, that is Bob on the right screen. And those are the fairing halves from Starlink Group 12 1. So those are not the record setting fairing halves. The record setting ones was on the the West Coast. But still, flight proven fairing halves that SpaceX successfully plucked out of the water. And I was actually looking through some stats the other day. And throughout all of 2024, the about 120 launches or a little under 120 launches that have had fairing halves on them, SpaceX has only lost 2 halves that we know of this year. So 240 recovery attempts or something like that, and 238 of those have been successful. So yeah, this fairing reuse program has been tremendously successful, and uh, it's certainly improved a lot from the days of uh, Mischief and Mistree
So
returning with broken arms and no fairing halves.
let's
I
let's.
was
Oh, go ahead, Julia. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I kind of miss the days where we had Mystery and Mischief, and there would be little markings on the fairings that would show whether they had survived water landings or if they were caught. Um, and there is no way when we're looking at the fairings on the pad to know how many times they've flown, um, because they don't really seem to age all that much considering what they go through. But I did want to share, you said couple million a piece, right? Okay, and then you kind of rounded up to, okay, maybe about
Yeah.
10 million for both, right? So
Hmm.
what we do know is um, earlier in the program, Elon had said it was basically $6 million a half. But since he's said that, there have been, as SpaceX does, iterative changes to it. One of them just being the venting and just kind of how the lip works on the end of the fairing so that water doesn't come in to the sailboat like structure. So you add in just different ways for them to make it more reusable and more robust. And it's actually more than $6 million a half now, although we haven't gotten any confirmation exactly, but it's probably about twice that much per half. So I think more along the lines of you're saving yourself $24 million every time you
So
fly.
let's say they are $12 million a piece, okay? Let's do 10 because it's over the course of the life of this program. Okay, so
Mhm.
we say $10 million a ferry in half, and they've recovered them what 238 times? You said
This
Yeah.
year.
two. Oh, just this year.
Yeah.
So just this year, in theory, they've saved maybe 20 to 2.4 billion.
How many Falcon 9s is that you saved in costs just by
Like
reflying fairings?
so, over the life of the program, with just ferry and recovery, they have saved an SLS and a half or something like that worth of money.
That's just fairings, folks. Isn't that
Like six,
mind-boggling?
probably like 6 billion. I would say they've saved overall. If you talk about everything, that's a lot. That's a
The
lot
other
of
thing
money.
to take into account is it's not just money that's being saved. It's this launch cadence would almost certainly be
Oh
impossible
no.
if
Oh yeah.
SpaceX was expending the fairings and booster every time. Those Falcon boosters take a long time to build, right? They've only built what 95 or so, call it 100 Falcon boosters since Falcon 9 started flying. So to get to this launch cadence, which right this year we're anticipating about 140 launches total between Falcon and Starship. To get there, you're not getting there with expended vehicles.
Mm-mm. The
Absolutely not.
It's nuts. I mean, they're able to recover the fairings and the first stages. It's nuts that they're able to build that many second stages. That's insane. That I mean, it's just mind-boggling, and they want to go more.
Well, see, and there's where you get into what are our roadblocks for a higher cadence in the future. Is
Mhm.
it drone ships? Is it second stages? Is it weather? It's probably a combination of those three, in all honesty, because what else is really stopping them?
I mean,
Yeah,
nothing. Yeah, it's literally it's just getting the drone ships back, second stage production, and that's about it. I mean, there really isn't anything else that's holding them back.
they
And to think,
definitely need to start increasing their or decreasing the stage one turnaround times too, which I mean, as we were talking about earlier, they have been doing because there was a time like a week or two ago, where basically every single usable booster at the Cape, except for one or two, had been used within the last 2 or 3 weeks. So it really goes to show that these 25-day turnaround times that we're so consistently seeing now is absolutely necessary to keep up the cadence that they have with the number of boosters that they have.
I think if they really tried and they really wanted to, I think they could get it down to like 10 or 11 days. I think just I think the biggest thing that would hold them back is the time of getting it back, getting it back on the drone ship and getting it to the hangar. And
uh,
then maybe a few days to look at it and integrate the second stage and ship it off to to the pad. I think they could do it in 10, 11. I wouldn't doubt it. I don't know if they can do it quicker than that. I'm not exactly sure how long it takes them to actually look at it and refurb it, but I'm pretty
well,
sure they could probably do it in like 10 or 11.
mm, in all fairness, I think they just kind of have a backlog now
Yeah.
because they've gotten the drone ships down pat. they're in and out as fast as they really can be, to the point where it appears that Port Canaveral has approved them just setting it on the dock so that they can get it off of the drone ship and get the drone ship back out. And now we've got one booster, I do believe, if Alex said yesterday, was still sitting in port, which means perhaps it's being reserved for, as Alex said, a customer mission, and it's in no hurry to leave. But we've seen, it's a very common occurrence to see two boosters in the midst of having their legs folded up and being ready to transport. So I imagine Hangar X is quite the, well, they have multiple garage doors, but shuffling those boosters in and out, and eventually,
Aren't they? I'm pretty sure
hmm?
they're adding an extension to it too, like an
I,
extension in the back to add more room. I
that
don't know
actually,
if it's enough for another booster though. I'd have to look back at the pictures unless
no,
Alex
I think
tell
that's
me
more for
different.
fairings, actually. It's
Oh,
like fairing size, if I remember our last flyover
yeah.
correctly. It's like fairing size-ish, but I'm kind of now imagining these multiple garage doors at Hangar X as like when you pull in at the racetrack to be serviced. And
Yeah.
I'm just thinking different crews on boosters in different stages, and them making their pit stops, because that's what it's becoming now, is just kind of a pit stop in Hangar X and back out to the pad.
Julia, do you remember that memo that came out from the port? I don't, maybe it was like 3, 4 years ago or something like that, where they were complaining basically about all of the boats for space operations constantly being at the port, and that they didn't really want all of these space companies just having boats staying there like 24/7 to support, 1 or 2 launches. They certainly can't make
Yes.
that complaint anymore.
No, they have achieved Port Canaveral's goal of being so needed that they're no longer taking up dock space, which, fun fact, comes in handy right now because it is the holiday season, and as we know, Port Canaveral is not just a spaceport, it is a cruise port, a fishing port, and a cargo port, as well as, well, a naval port. So, we have at least one day a week, we have 4 to 5 cruise ships come in the morning, and then another 4 in the afternoon, which means they use some of the cargo docks to offload passengers. And sometimes that means that they're docked over there at North Cargo 6 or 5, whichever one it is. And not having drone ships there is very helpful.
Yeah. And the last bit of really exciting news that we got is, as Ryan was mentioning earlier, today's mission will be carrying 24 of the Starlink V2 mini satellites. And none of these on this launch have that direct to cell capability. But today, SpaceX got authorization from the FCC for their direct to cell program in the United States. So, starting in the coming weeks, it sounds like SpaceX employees will start beta testing of this constellation in full force, and then later on, this will start as a T-Mobile service, so where your LTE capable phone will be able to talk directly with the satellites on orbit. So this was a huge win for SpaceX and super exciting. The one somewhat interesting note is, if you actually go and read the document, which we are definitely not going to do, and on the 23rd page, they talk about how, right, a few months ago, SpaceX had asked for to basically not follow these power requirements exactly uh, that the FCC has in place. And I think what the result is with the power targets that they have, they kind of leak a little bit of into some of the into the bands close to what these satellites are operating at. So that was not granted to them. There you can see that those concerns. Uh, where is it in this paragraph? With this order, we comply SpaceX to comply. Uh, Somewhere else. It's somewhere down here. But yes, that's the one thing SpaceX did not get granted to them, is this acceptance to this rule. They are still trying to understand that better. There we go. Thank you, Kevin. We defer consideration of SpaceX's request for waiver of blah, blah, blah. I don't know what any of this means. So that is the one interesting thing that we'll have to continue paying attention to. However, what an absolute win for SpaceX. The direct to cell program is going to be very exciting.
Yeah, I can't wait to see. It'll be once the network gets more and more fleshed out, the more and more satellite direct to cell sats that go up. It'll be kind of crazy to be able to use your phone basically anywhere in the world, even if it's just that's kind of what they're basically hinting at with this. Once it gets approved, everywhere, but it's kind of the first step just here in the United States. So it's cool. It's really really cool.
Yeah, and there you can see that it is going to be in employee beta service soon. And I believe there's another post from a couple days ago where they said that they only need one more launch of these satellites before the initial constellation is complete. So, of course, they'll still keep putting up a lot more, but it sounds like um, they are very close to having the number of satellites operational that they need for that service to get started. There we go. One launch left. Very exciting. This is going to be awesome, and it's cool that there are several companies working on this with AST, Starlink, and I think there are even a few others. So exciting. But with that, Ryan, we are at T minus 38 minutes, so SpaceX should have an ongoing poll. Can you walk us through what decision they're making and if that poll is go, what we'll start seeing?
Yeah, at T minus 38 minutes, SpaceX will verify go for propellant load. At T minus 35, they'll start loading RP1 into the first stage, as well as liquid oxygen. So sooner or later, we should be getting the go from SpaceX on whether or not their go for launch tonight. And then it's about like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you'll start to see frost on it. And then shortly after that, they eventually get to the T minus 20 minute and 20-second vent, which is the chill down of the strong back in preparation to load liquid oxygen onto the second stage. Just kind of like you see the tower vent or the OLM vent go on at Starbase. So, yeah.
We should be getting confirmation of that very soon for a hopeful launch in 35 minutes. But with that, as always, if you guys have any questions, make sure you tag us in chat with the at NASA Spaceflight, and we will do our best to answer them. Starting off with 9/8 Central with a question from when we were showing the stage 2 splashdown zone, and they were asking, is the stage splashdown zone actually straight line, but it looks curved because Earth is round? Yep. It's just a straight line, and because of the weirdness of the Mercator projection, it does not look straight. Um, let's see. Peter is wondering, do we know of any plans for SpaceX to build additional drone ships? Julia, we heard a little bit about this earlier this year, right?
Yeah, there was a reply that kind of insinuated maybe. Does it exist? I have no idea. Is there maybe a plan for one sitting in a book on a shelf? Probably. But my guess, this is my guess, is that they've proven the cadence that they can sustain with getting out to various landing zones, coming back, offloading, switching out crew, and going back out. So maybe this year is seeing whether or not we even need to invest in having yet another drone ship. And if we did, would we move that perhaps and have a second one over on the West Coast? That might be the thing to do as they start ramping up their cadence as well. So it's still a big old giant question mark.
Yeah, so first of all, I'll get back to that in just a second, but SpaceX did shift the T0 to the right by about 10 minutes. So thankfully, not a huge shift, but this is an interesting new thing that SpaceX is able to do. Instead of having specific instantaneous T0s within the launch window, right, and having like 5, 6, 7 of them, however many they have for each launch, they now have these continuous launch windows within the main window. So this is an example of the sub window, where this first sub window opened at 3:05 UTC, and it extends until 3:16 UTC. So this is the end of the first sub window, and then from this point, there's not the next window isn't for about 20 minutes or so. So a little bit of a change in how SpaceX is doing these Starlink missions for those who are paying very close attention. Thank you, Alex. Anyway, back to what Julia was saying. Yeah, we did get the tweet or the post from Kiko earlier this year about hinting at another drone ship, and then he made the post saying that with their current fleet, they can support about 225 drone ship launches per year. Um, and that's in addition to, right, some RTLS. So I think they will need another drone ship sooner than later, especially as Slick 6 comes online, but I don't think we're going to see a new drone ship anytime soon. Um, Just Me Dr. B became a PadVed member. Welcome. 98 Central became a Red Team member. Thank you all very much for joining our membership program. Jan upgraded to Capcom, and Steven also became a Capcom member. So make sure you say hi to all of us in the members Discord server and come hang out. It's a fun place. And then Anonymous with the store message saying, uh, with the Starship Flight Test 6 hoodie, saying, my husband and I love watching your news videos and live streams for every launch we can, especially Starship. Thanks to all the members of the team that work hard to bring these launches to life for us that can't be there in person and keeping updated in all things spaceflight. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Anonymous. And this is when people like Dee and Julia are super important since they're the ones in the field bringing us the photons. Dee just drove back from Florida. So uh, they are the real heroes.
You mean
And
D just drove back from Texas
yeah, I
to
was about to
Florida?
say Texas to Florida.
Yeah, they drove from Florida to Texas, then Texas to Florida. There we
There
go.
you
There you go. You got it eventually.
And a very admirable effort to get back in time for a Starlink mission, but y'all, it was a Starlink mission, and uh, the safety and sanity of our crew is utmost important. So we do apologize that, we did not have that the other day, but Dee really needed some sleep and I had to work. So, sometimes that's how Starlinks go.
Yeah. Here's a question for you, Ryan. WG Mojo is wondering uh, if pad work has resumed on the Starship launch tower, which you can kind of see to the right, that big tower with those two red flashing lights. What is going on with that launch tower and Starship work?
Well, we definitely saw some other cranes show up, and they just built a larger crane and raised it, or at least partially raised it. You can kind of see part of the jib next to what is the LOX tank, the really big LOX tank they made a while back. It's kind of interesting. I don't know what they're going to need that crane for. They do have to replace all of the subcoolers and large horizontal tanks that they took from this pad for Massey's and Starbase itself, because it used to have basically all the subcoolers they needed. They then stole them to use them over in Texas. So they're gonna have to bring all those back in and put them all at. But it does look like work is starting to pick back up again. Definitely some stuff going on at Roberts Road. So I think with, there's the new Starship block coming online soon, them learning how to make that pad B at Starbase, they're definitely going to kick into an idea they're going to kick into gear on getting 39A up and running, especially since I think the EIS is slated to finish. I think it's August, September, but it'll maybe, I think it's might be October if I remember the timeline right. But usually that might slip a month or two. So the EIS might be done by the end of the year, and they need that done to launch from the updated pad that they're going to have. So there's a lot of paperwork to get done, a lot of work to get done, but it looks like they're starting to ramp it up again.
Very cool. That's what we want to see. Um, let's see. A MiG clone is saying booster B1080 flew 3 times in just under 42 days. Yeah, it's kind of absurd how fast that second turnaround was and how consistent some of these newer boosters are being turned around in 25 days. Um, let's see. Stewie is wondering, everyone at my company is an engineer, but my boss thinks SpaceX is all show and no substance. Do you have any good one-liners to help explain to engineers who don't follow SpaceX? Just look at how many launches they've had this year. Look at their streams. Look at uh, the amount of mass that they've put into orbit.
I mean, they've launched the most powerful rocket in history 6 times now. Like that alone is kind of nuts. What was it? The other most powerful one that launched a few times was 13 launches, so they're already halfway to beating Saturn V, and they'll easily do that next year. That's just Saturn. That's not the over 100 Falcon 9 launches. Like, it's in just 1 year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Um, let's see. Going to some more questions. The angry engineer is saying, any plans on SpaceX using Falcon Heavy at Slick 40? No. Slick 40 has no plans of having Falcon Heavy. I don't even think the HIF is large enough for Falcon Heavy. So that will stay at 39A. And then I believe that if they ever need to have another launch pad, they would get one at Vandenberg with probably Slick 6. Yeah, and Alex is saying the pad can't support Falcon Heavy in its current design. They would have to completely change the layout, including the flame trench.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely
like
not 40, but it is definitely possible, but I think unlikely that we see another Falcon Heavy pad at Vandenberg.
I think like the yeah, because if I remember correctly, 40 is good enough for Falcon 9. You're talking 3 Falcon 9s firing at once. That requires a significant upgrade to a deluge system, to the flame trench itself, to the pad infrastructure itself to all handle that. For 39A, it kind of tickles, kind of way. Like a Falcon Heavy doesn't really hurt 39A that much. 39A was built for Saturn V, so it doesn't really do that much to it. But like Slick 6 could work for it because, well, it took Delta IV Heavy. I'm pretty sure it could take a Falcon Heavy.
Yeah. I don't think it's likely though. Especially with the, sorry Jack, I'm gonna say it, the polar launch corridor from at the Cape. There's not really a need for Vandenberg. RC Horseman gifted 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you very much. And Eric is wondering, question from my mother-in-law visiting us here in Florida from San Diego. Why didn't this launch last night? We all love your coverage. Julia, why do we think they didn't launch yesterday?
Well, um, judging I honestly don't know that answer because SpaceX didn't share it. What I can tell you is it was not weather related. It was perfectly clear. So it had to either be pad or rocket related, I'm assuming. We're just gonna say launch readiness was not ready. Yeah. There's a lot of people lining up outside here for a launch tonight because tomorrow's Thanksgiving, school's off, and well, apparently people don't have to work tomorrow, unlike those of us in retail. So just giving y'all an update that there's a lot of people showing up for a launch tonight.
Yeah, and if SpaceX's current T0 is holding, we should start seeing frost on the vehicle any second now, or confirmation from SpaceX. But of course, as we mentioned, there are plenty of backup launch windows in today's main window, so they have until 1:30 a.m. local time to launch. So they have another 3.5 windows or so hours in today's window. So please,
Oh
SpaceX,
man,
don't take the whole 3.5 hours. I beg you. If you do,
I'm
It's
having
do.
last night
SpaceX.
flashbacks.
Yeah.
I don't want to be
Wait,
crying in my car
wait.
tonight, so
Trevor, did you just say 3.5 windows?
I did say 3.5 windows in the window, when
You
really
know,
they have
it's yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have 10 sub windows in the window now. So,
Mm,
yeah. But I am not seeing frost. Are you guys?
no, unfortunately.
no, I am not seeing frost either, and that is a key indicator. Um, so a lesson for folks to learn if you're ever watching a launch live and you're visiting the Space Coast is make sure you tune into folks like us so that you know what we can see on the pad with our cameras because that might be important. You might be waiting, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. And D is saying that it's very humid, so we would expect to see lots of frost on today's launch if they were into propellant loads. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it looks like they are probably targeting another sub window, but we'll
Yeah.
see.
And that's okay too, because you can enjoy the starry, starry skies if you are waiting out here on the Space Coast. Um, otherwise, you can listen to our witty banter. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, folks, is if you have questions, bring them on.
Indeed, bring them on,
Oh, that's funny.
including Starship questions. We'll answer whatever you want to talk about, including how to see a launch. Julia, how do you see a launch?
Well, you know what? We have a video for that, and it's called How to See a Launch, and it is on our YouTube channel. So, how do you see a launch? Well, first of all, and the main thing we talk about in that video is knowing time of day is going to be a factor in where you choose because not everything is open at this time of night. Today, I am off of US 1 across from El Leoncitos, which is a great Mexican restaurant. And I'm at one of our local parks. There's a lot of places on US 1 that you can watch a launch. Um, if it were daytime, I might choose Playa Linda Beach. If you ever wanted an amazing experience for a launch, you got to watch from the beach. With that being said, this time of night, you could go to Cocoa Beach and you could watch the launch by the Atlantic Ocean. So I highly recommend you check out the How to Watch a Launch video. And if you still have questions, well, you can message one of us on our socials as well, and we'll be happy to help you make that decision if you have any questions.
Yeah, video is put together well. Um,
It was a
Ryan,
fun one to make.
since you like to talk about Starship, here's an interesting question from Martin, who's wondering why did SpaceX change the angle of attack Why SpaceX changed the angle of attack naming for Starship. Starship's high angle equals airplane's low angle. Um, I think
Change the angle of attack naming? What do you mean? Because if you're talking about the change, so a high angle of attack can mean you're pointed in either direction. It's just your high. It just it's basically a high number of degrees, either uh, down nose or up nose. Is all it really means. A low angle of attack would mean a low number of degrees up nose or down nose. That's basically all it is. Um, there isn't saying high is up or low is down. It's presented as high is a larger number, low is a smaller number. It just kind of like a general reference is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I think isn't angle of attack officially defined as the angle between the vector of the airflow and of your like velocity vector? So I think it is defined similarly, right? I don't
Yeah.
know.
So angle of attack is your oh, and looks like we have a hold, I guess,
Well,
or at least
that's just
kind
from
of.
us not seeing frost. They're
Okay.
definitely not launching at the T0 that
Yeah, no.
they have listed on their site. So they've definitely held the start of prop load, and we do not know what the current T0 is. So this is not a hold, as in they are done for today. They have not started prop load, so they can continue to scrub through these windows or delay through these windows as much as they need. As I mentioned earlier, they have backup opportunities until 1:30 a.m. Eastern time, so they got plenty of time.
We'll wait to hear from SpaceX on confirmation when they are going. So, um, the question of angle of attack and its reference. Basically, yeah, it's your reference to your vector and your airflow. Basically, like whether you're gonna go, because whenever you change your angle of attack, whenever you change your inclination or anything, you always need a reference plane to base that off of, and it's where you want to point the nose, or where you're basically supposed to be pointing the nose and going up and down. So, um, that's just basically all it is in layman's terms.
Right. Cool. JC Davis with the super chat saying, "Hope y'all are having a good night. I'm coming down for New Glenn. What's the chance I'll catch a few Falcon launches, and how long do I have to stay to guarantee that?" Um,
Two and
hopefully
a
you're
half
not going
days.
down for New Glenn's launch anytime soon, because that's probably not going to be until January or February at the earliest. But yes, we are expecting that static fire soon. In terms of how long you have to be at the Cape for a launch, they have a launch about every 3 days from the Cape. So if you're there for even under a week, you have a very good chance of seeing one.
And may I throw in
Um,
there that if you are coming for a New Glenn launch, I highly suggest Cars Park to watch that if that's an option for you. I was at Cars Park. Um, my goodness, that was last week for a launch, and let me tell you, that's a fabulous view of many of the pads, but specifically New Glenn's pad.
yeah, New Glenn's pad is kind of insane. It is huge.
It is. It's gigantic. Like, yeah, I see the rocket. I know how big New Glenn is. Like, it's nearly the size of a Saturn V. But they really future proofed with the size of that tower and the lightning tower. It's kind of nuts. Like, even Starship wouldn't be as tall as that tower is. At least as far as I remember off the top of my head. Like, The tower's gigantic.
But so fun fact, I remember being on Exploration Tower when they were building that water tower and thinking that that water tower was huge. And then they built the pad. And all of a sudden the water tower didn't look so big anymore. But then going out on the water the first time that basically a full-size New Glenn mock-up had been on the pad, right? Well, I guess it was the original. It was the first stage, but it was the second stage on up wasn't. And realizing that this rocket fills that pad was absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah. But with that, since SpaceX is not giving us another T0, we are going to go on a commentary pause until SpaceX has entered prop load, so that we're not here talking for 3.5 hours about a Starlink mission. So we'll be back as soon as SpaceX confirms they're in prop load and we start seeing signs. And until then, enjoy the music. We'll be back. Thanks, everyone. Hey everyone, just a little update for you guys. It looks like SpaceX is no longer targeting the 2255 T0. Based on the timing of the X stream, it's now looking like 11:41 local time. So it'll be about another hour of a delay, but it will of course be here once they enter prop load. Thanks everyone. Have a great night. Hello, everybody. Again, we are now under half an hour from launch, and this time we see the frost that we want to see. So now our live commentary will begin again, but we had a little bit of a commentary crew change. Replacing Ryan is the wonderful Alejandro Alcantarilla Romero. Alex, how are you doing today?
Look at that. You're trying to get that better and better.
You criticize me every time, so I have to.
uh, that was good. That was good.
And then, of course, Julia is back with us.
Hello, hello. We are back, and it's still beautiful outside, y'all. A little bit damp, but beautiful.
Yeah, so Alex, for those who may just be joining us or wasn't paying attention earlier, can you just walk us through what this mission is and what we're hoping to see lift off in about 28 minutes from now?
Yes. So today, obviously, we're looking at a Falcon 9. It is already under propellant load, as we were talking about, right? It is launching 24 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. That orbit's about 43-degree inclination. So if you imagine sort of like in between being 0 degrees and 90, so in between, like that. And so precisely because of that, it is going southeast. That is the trajectory, as you can see there. It is going to go north of the Bahamas. That'll be with booster B1078, as you can see there on the ticker below, which will be attempting a landing on a shortfall of gravitas. It is its 15th flight, very easy 27-day turnaround time here from the Cape. But yeah, we have had quite already some set of slips into this window. But now that we are under propellant load, we are pretty much, already set in for that T0. If I'm not mistaken, it should be 11:41:30 p.m. Eastern Time, or 441 and 30 seconds UTC. So that's what we are targeting for. That's the mission for today, 24 Starlink V2 mini satellites. And I'm sure a lot of people might be wondering what all of that is. But as you mentioned before, you can tag at NASA Spaceflight and ask your questions.
Yeah, of course. And Julia, how is the weather looking for today's attempt?
The weather is looking beautiful, to be honest with you. It is a absolutely crystal clear sky. I know it's dark out, but I can say I do not see any clouds, not even little low-level clouds out there by the Atlantic. We have calm winds and a glassy lagoon in front of me, so I'm super excited for everybody to watch and listen along with us tonight.
Indeed. And I forgot to mention earlier when we came back, we do have Kevin Michael Reed producing in the background. I always forget to shout out the producer, so shame on me. Make sure you thank Kevin. It's been a rough day for him with Ship 26 getting scrapped. Uh, but with that, we will go to some of your guys' questions. So as always, if you have any, make sure you tag us in chat with the @NASA Spaceflight, and we will try our best to answer them. Thankfully, we have Alex, so you should be getting good answers. But first, a little bit of support. Laura with a bunch of stuff from the store saying merch with an exclamation point. Hopefully, you enjoy all of the merch that you got. And I suspect Kevin is wanting me to talk about the fueling process. Alex, where are we in the fueling process?
Yeah, so as you can see there, we are approximately 25 minutes away from liftoff. Propellant load has been underway for about 10 minutes. It starts at T-minus 35 minutes. That's an automated process which begins with propellant load on the first stage, both RP1 and liquid oxygen. And on the second stage, they load RP1. In about 5 minutes, that RP1 load will wrap up and we'll see the LOX chill down. So you can see there, we are 5 minutes away now, almost to the dot. And and that LOX chill down is essentially this usual vent that we see on the Stromberg, right? We'll talk about that when we get there. But that'll be the preparation for the stage 2 LOX load, which will be at T-minus 16 minutes. And so that is sort of the few steps that we are heading into. One key trick here that you can see, and today the weather looks quite amazing for this kind of trick is Falcon 9 is not like, for example, the shuttle external tank and the SLS core stage, for example, they all have SOFI, right? Spray on foam insulation, essentially, just insulation that keeps the tanks cold, but it doesn't let any frost on the tank. However, Falcon 9 does not have that. Starship does not have any of that either. So you can see the frost building up as the propellant load continues, at least for the booster's liquid oxygen tank. So that's a neat sort of progress bar that you can use if you want to know how much of liquid oxygen the booster has. So yeah, that's my Alex advice, I guess.
Yeah, we can see that frost line rapidly rising, and as Dee predicted, there is a lot of frost on the vehicle from the how humid the Florida air is tonight.
Which means when we do have a T minus 20-minute vent, it should be a hefty one.
Awesome. Angry Penguin with the super chat saying DJ's tip jar with 2 penguin emojis. I don't know who DJ is, but I love penguins, so
It's because we
thank
were
you.
probably, putting the music out before, right?
Oh,
For the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
DJ, it's a tip jar.
Well, thank you, Angry Penguin. Then Tracy gifted a Red Team memberships, and Cranky with the super chat saying from Jason and Jan. Well, thank you, Jason and Jan. And then Bob became a Padred member. Welcome all very much to our membership program. And the DJ is Kevin Michael Reed. I guess he's breaking out into DJing now. So if you want to hire a DJ, think about Kevin Michael Reed. Um, Here's a question for you, Alex. The diabetic kid is wondering, do you know how DTC will work in terms of plan? Will it be part of your normal T-Mobile data or will it be a special add-on? Has SpaceX talked much about how the direct to cell service is actually going to work now that they're starting to roll it out?
I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea about the implementation. I know like the basics of how the DTC satellite network and everything works and why is it possible and everything, right? It still feels kind of magic, but on the user end kind of things, unfortunately, I'm not a communications person from T-Mobile or from SpaceX, right? It's supposed to be something that you should be able to access, like if you are part of T-Mobile and suddenly you're in an area where you don't have, like, at least this is sort of the description that they have given. Again, I have no idea about this in reality, right? But the rough sort of description that they have given is that if you're in an area where you don't have any mobile connectivity, right? Suddenly, if you're on T-Mobile, then your phone will try to go and pick up the signal from DTC, from those satellites. However, don't expect like, wow, I'm looking, I'm watching YouTube on my phone in the middle of the desert. You probably want Starlink, like plain Starlink for that, and just hook up your Starlink, right? This is like just very basic text and maybe voice in the future. This is not like internet straight down to your phone or anything like it, right? This is like one of the things I feel like, at least in the popular culture, has been shifted in such a way that people think it's going to be, internet straight down to your phone. It's more like, hey, I can make a call in the middle of the desert if I'm in distress or something like that, which is a really darn good thing to have, right? Like that's a really good technology to have, but it's not going to be I'm watching a YouTube video like this live stream, for example. You need the proper Starlink antenna for that, and then you go and hook up to that via Wi-Fi. But yeah.
Yeah, I think Elon said that it'll be free and available to everyone for emergencies, and then
Hmm.
it will be the T-Mobile customers that are able to use it for random text messages and whatnot. But right on time, at T minus 20 minutes and 26 seconds, we just had that T minus 20-minute vent. So that is indication that those lines are being readied for liquid oxygen load, which begins at T minus 16 minutes. And in case you guys come to a lot of our streams, you may be wondering T minus 20 minutes and 26 seconds. That doesn't sound right. 39A, for some reason, that vent occurs 6 seconds sooner. So it's T minus 2026 as opposed to T minus 2020. And there's the countdown. So LOX chill down is underway, and then that will chill down until that T minus 16-minute mark, which is when stage 2 liquid oxygen load will begin. And Alex, the reason why they want to load that liquid oxygen late is because it is quite cold, right?
Yeah, one of the reasons why they subcool. So I'm gonna backtrack a little bit here. So generally, when you see cryogenics like liquid oxygen being loaded onto other rockets, they are loaded at the boiling temperature, right? Essentially, I think it's about 183 or something under zero for Celsius or something like that. I don't exactly know the number. I'm sorry, but it's around that number. And so the thing is, if you are able to load it onto the rocket colder, it's going to be more denser, meaning that you're going to get more mass out of it for the same volume, right? That's sort of the whole deal of increased density. And so for that, you need to subcool it. And when they subcool it, I believe the temperature is about it's about 10 15 degrees colder than boiling temperature, about 190 195, maybe 200 I've seen sometimes quoted out there. So that's more or less the sort of temperature that they load this. And the problem is, if you let it sit on the tank and warm up, then you lose that efficiency, you lose that density. And so you want that to be loaded as close to T0 as possible, so that then you don't get that warming up of the liquid oxygen, right? That effect of lowering the density effectively, right? That you don't want to lose that performance. And so that's why they load as close to T0 as possible. Other rockets can sit on the pad for hours and hours with the cryogenics, and it's okay because they load at boiling point. And as long as you keep replenishing the tank, it's gonna it's gonna sit there, no big deal. But of course, you don't get any performance boost. Falcon 9 benefits from that performance boost in the sense that, well, they can return the booster and then reuse it, right? Like, you want that performance boost because then you can launch more payload for doing the same, and that's always good.
Yeah, super chill of propellant seems to be the major thing that has allowed Falcon reuse to be so successful, since it allows for, or one of the major things, since it allows for um, more performance, which means you can, right, with the same vehicle, launch more payload, meaning your like net cut from reusing this vehicle is lessened. So that was a very good move by SpaceX to start perfecting that early. Bob became a PadRed member. Welcome very much to the PadRed. Uh, and the Angry Engineer is wondering, what booster do you think will be the first one to reach 40 flights? Let's go around the horn. Julia, what is your best estimate for this?
Um, Honestly, I have no idea because I can't even remember uh which one was it. 1066 that reached 22 flights
No, it's
first.
67.
67. Okay, I was close. It was in the 60s. Um, I guess that's basically our fleet leader. So I'm just going to randomly go with that one.
Alex?
I think for 30 flights, it's going to be in the 60s, but for 40 flights, it's probably going to be in the 70s. Like maybe this booster, 78. Who knows, right? The reason why I think that is because probably by the time they get to 40 flights on a booster, or rather than, perhaps the ones that are in the 60s of the numbers, right? When they go beyond those, 25, 30 flights, maybe they're going to be too old for them to, try and get get out 40 flights out of them. We'll see though. But as we're seeing, they don't really care too much if they need to expend some of these older boosters, There you can see the flight history of B1078, the booster that we're seeing here on screen right now. Lots of flights under its belt, and still, that's only 14 flights it's already done. This being the 15th. So rather new, like if they reach 40 flights, right, with a booster, this is a new booster in comparison to 40. Like 15 is nothing, right? So we'll see when they get there, but I think it's probably going to be in the 70s. I will not be able to pinpoint an exact booster because they just, move around and everything, and so it's complicated.
Yeah, I mean, there are only 3 boosters left in the 60s, 63, 67, and 69, so like you were saying, since SpaceX likes to retire the oldest booster in its fleet whenever it has an expendable mission, I think we can expect,
Hmm.
within the next year or 2, for them to get to, expend 63 and 67 and maybe even 69, so we'll see. Good question. Another question that I think only you will have a good answer for, Alex. When is Slick 6 supposed to come online and have its first launch?
Hmm. Well, it's supposed to come online next year, but we don't know what are they going to be doing with that. They just got the FONSI, as they call it, the finding of no significant impact, to do 100 launches from, excuse me, not 100, 50 launches out of Vandenberg, but they are still in the process to get the environmental assessment for Slick 6 and 100 flights a year from Vandenberg. Because once they operate both pads, they want to be able to launch 100 times from Vandenberg by having Slick 4 East, right? Space Launch Complex 4 East, and then Space Launch Complex 6. That's in Vandenberg, in California, right? Um, right now, the timelines are very, very tentative. Like, there's pretty much we've tried because there's no possibility of a flyover or anything like it. We have Harry Stranger, right, with his satellite pictures and whatnot. There's no huge changes, but there are really great plans for Slick 6 in the next couple of years. Hopefully, activating that for Falcon.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be exciting. Just like Mr. Goose is wondering what's up with the Gigabay at Texas, and we did see today some interesting job postings from SpaceX where they listed the Gigabay. So I think we're just expecting that to probably be like combining of, I don't know, maybe where the high bay is and one of the mega bays into an even bigger building. Do we know anything more about that, Alex, or is it pure speculation at this point as to what is Giga about Gigabay?
No idea. This is one of those things that we kind of have to see being built up. One thing that I will not be surprised to see, and it will be a pity for us in terms of coverage, which is perhaps joining that building to the Star Factory. The portion that is closer to the road, in which case they will be able to roll vehicles and barrel sections of those vehicles straight from the Star Factory into the Mega Bay or Giga Bay, whatever they call it, right? And just stack, barrel after barrel, and just keep going with that and build vehicles after vehicles. Right now, the only bay that has that capability of being joined to another bay is Mega Bay 2, the one for ships. But, you know, we have not seen a lot of use out of that. Let's put it that way.
Right. Cool. Um, a quick question from 98 Central, who's wondering, was there a V1 Mini in the past? There was not. However, there was the V1 and V1.5 satellites. The V1.5 satellites added those intercommunication links, so they were a little bit more massive. However, they still were those uh, they were still the smaller satellite size. But with that, real quick, I wanted to talk about the ongoing Black Friday sale at shop.nasaspaceflight.com, where you can get some prints on discount, where if you buy one, you can get a second for 30% off. some of those awesome prints from our photographers. Our photographers are so amazing. And then our hoodies, if you buy 3 and get them off for 20%, and then also some discounts on our t-shirts. So if you're interested in that, want to get something for the holidays or whatever, now is the time, given all shirts are 25% off. Check it out. With that, Julia, here's a good question for you. Misty is wondering, what's the best place to watch a launch from the Space Coast?
Well, we do have a video for that. The short answer is for a launch like this one, which is later on in the day, you can choose somewhere like Titusville, anywhere along US 1, or we've got lots of parks, lots of places to pull over, or you can go to Cocoa Beach. That is also a great view if it is daytime. Go ahead and visit somewhere like Cars Park, or if there's a launch from 39A, I invite you to Playa Linda Beach in Titusville. That is a gorgeous view. But it just depends on the time of day and what's available and how much you want to spend. But most places are free.
Very cool. That video, we'll try to link it in chat if one of the mods or someone is able to do that. That would be much appreciated so that you can hopefully go see a launch. But with that, under 10 minutes from flight, Kane is wondering, has this particular booster seen reuse? If so, how many times? Yeah, like most SpaceX launches these days, this booster is in fact flight proven. It is flying for its 15th time, which honestly feels like a pretty new booster at this point.
Right. And this one has flown 10 Starlink missions and 4 customer missions previously, with its first one being a crew mission, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I believe 78 first flew on Crew 6 back in
Yep.
March of 2023.
Funny enough, this also launched the AST Space Mobile satellites, the Bluebirds.
Oh, yeah, back in
Yeah.
September.
This one has launched pretty much like, every month or so lately. It's been quite nice.
Yeah, a lot of Starlink missions. Yeah, it's the average turnaround of this booster is 45 days, so a little over a month. And I think if you let's look at the last this year, it's been every 36 days. So yeah, just about once a month. That is very impressive. Alex, coming up in the next 7 minutes, can you just take us through the events that we're going to see with propellant load finishing and up through liftoff?
Yeah, right now they are wrapping up the RP1 load on the first stage. Meanwhile, the first stage engines are also getting chilled down for flight. So that's when they flow a little bit of that liquid oxygen through the pumps. So they get at the right temperatures for operations, once the engines ignite. The Stromback will retract at T minus 5 minutes. Those top clamps at the top of the structure will open and sort of leave way for the rocket to eventually be able to lift off. The final retract, the Stromback will fully retract obviously at liftoff, but this will be a 1.8 degree retraction first at T minus 5 minutes. Then, we're going to get the usual wrapping up of liquid oxygen load on the first stage at T minus 3 minutes, T minus 2 minutes for the second stage. We'll have the comeback of the Stromback vent. We're going to have, Falcon 9 going in startup at T minus 1 minute. That's when the computers hand over control of the count from the ground to the onboard computers, essentially to the Falcon 9. Then we're going to have, hopefully, that go for launch at T minus 45 seconds. Tanks will go up to flight pressure, and engine ignition at 3 seconds. Lift off, hopefully in 5 minutes and 25 seconds.
Indeed. Yeah, always exciting as we get close, especially given the fact that this is going to be SpaceX's 123rd launch of 2024. So with this current pace, they're going to be hitting right about that 140 launch mark, which is fewer than they wanted. But given they had those three long breaks between launches, is very impressive nonetheless.
Yep.
How many launches are you putting them at for this year, Alex?
I also have my own spreadsheet and whatever. I have tried to sort of guess what the outlook for the rest of the year will look like if they can hit 136 as they want to.
That's 136 Falcon, so that would be 140
Falcon,
total,
yeah,
just to be clear.
140 total. Yes, exactly. So they want to hit 136. Currently, they have 118. So they need another 18 launches for the rest of the year with Falcon. So I try to do that. They will have some margin. They still have some room in the schedule in principle to be able to do that. The problem is there are a bunch of customer missions coming up, right? And customer missions, they're not Starlink missions. They are always sometimes due to some delays. And so hopefully we'll not see that. They also are all drone ship landings, so they also have to coordinate drone ship recoveries and whatnot, which is complicated if you want to have a very fast cadence as they have so far. But hopefully, if today goes off on time, then everything will keep going at a good pace for that target.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, this is SpaceX's 15th launch of the month, if I am counting correctly. And I believe they have two
Yep.
more launches planned this month, not including today's. They'll get up to 17 launches this month, which is, if they can keep that pace up next month, they would be on track to hit that goal, which is just mind blowing.
Yeah, they already hit a record of total launches if you count the Starship, right? If they do this, then it'll be a record for just Falcon 9 launches. And it's quite mind-boggling, to be fair, that they still have room in the
Stage 1
schedule
lock
to
float is
maybe
complete.
have. Well, there you go. Stage 1 looks load complete. But yeah, it's kind of mind-boggling that they may have even room for another 2 more launches before the end of the month, which will be quite amazing of a cadence. Um, yeah, we'll see.
And can I just insert into this conversation that we have broken records here for launching out of Cape, in Cape's history, and this is exactly what the Delta 45 has been. Space Wing Delta 45, sorry, has been training for. They have been waiting for the time where basically there would always be people in ops getting these launches off back to back, and I think
Stage
that's
2
a
lock float is
pretty
complete.
cool accomplishment.
And there's that call out that stage 2 LOX load is complete, so the vehicle is now fully loaded for today's launch. As Alex was saying, in about 40 seconds, we should be hearing that call out that the vehicle is entering startup. That is when the computers on board the vehicle will take control of the countdown from the computers on the ground. And then, hopefully, about 15
Ground
seconds
gas
after
closeout.
that, we will hear there's ground glass closeouts. And hopefully, about T minus 45 seconds, you will hear the LD say that they are go for launch. As always, pay attention to the base of the vehicle as we hit that T minus 3 second mark, as that is where we will see the first signs of engine ignition and the exhaust plume exiting the flame trench.
Yeah, and
T
also
minus one
remember
minute.
to
Falcon 9 is
be
in startup.
There you go. And also remember, for people out there, it's going southeast. So if you are south, look north and east.
Indeed. We could
LDs
also
go for
see
launch.
from there's that LD's go for launch call out that we want. We also have been able to see that those fairing halves are certainly flight proven.
T minus 30 seconds.
Nice.
Again, pay attention to the base. We probably won't be able to see that green T-tab flash from this angle. However, we should still hopefully see those 9 Merlin 1D engines roar to life before the vehicle checks them out, before commanding those launch clamps to be released. And there we have ignition and liftoff of Starlink Group 6-76, SpaceX's 123rd mission of the year. Enjoy the launch audio. Wow, Julia promised us epic sounds, and we can still kind of hear it 2 minutes into flight. That was insane. So now we're coming up on a series of events. As you can see, the vehicle is getting higher and higher into the atmosphere, and you're able to start seeing those individual engine plumes, and the trail become a little bluish toward the end. But we are coming up on a series of 3 events. The first one will be those 9 Merlin 1D engines shutting down, and there is that shutdown. And then there will be stage separation, where those 4 pushers will push the stages apart before stage 2 will ignite its engines, and stage 1 will begin deploying its grid fins. There we have stage 2
Impact ignition.
ignition.
Nice. Should
That's
be
what we
having
want to
fairing
see.
separation soon.
And there are those grid fins starting to deploy. As Alex mentioned, we are coming up on payload fairing separation. This is when those 2 payload fairing halves
Fairing
will be
separation
pushed away from
confirmed.
the vehicle.
Ooh, you could see it from the ground. Did you see that?
Yeah, there they are.
That
Again,
was
those
cool.
fairing halves have flown before, so this was completing their, well, we don't know how many times they've flown, but they will be recovered by Doug is downrange to pluck both of those out of the water.
That's such a cool view. You can see the 2 dots of the fairings. I believe that's the engine plume from the MVAC illuminating the fairings. How cool
Or
is
is it
that?
stars?
No, I meant before. You could see them sort of like blinking. The
Oh,
stars
okay.
are moving, but they were sort of like you know what I mean. Like what we keep tracking the second stage, right? And as we keep tracking, the stars come by on the background. These were illuminated right in front of of the of the exhaust of the MVAC. I could see them.
Cool. Well, Alex, we're coming up on a number of events to hopefully see that first stage softly touch down on a short fall of gravitas. Can you walk us through that process?
Yeah, so right now, as you can see there in the sort of bottom left corner, that's the stage 1 telemetry. The first stage has already achieved apogee, its highest point in its coast phase. it still has some momentum to go. And so now it's coming back down. And as it comes back down, it'll re-enter the atmosphere. And to protect itself as it re-enters the atmosphere, it'll do a re-entry burn or entry burn, as SpaceX calls it. And that is a 3-engine burn, but the 3 engines are not ignited at once, right? They start one at the center and then 2 outer ones about a couple of seconds later. And then those 3 engines run for about 25-30 seconds. They slow down the booster, but most importantly, they also protect it against re-entry. We still are tracking there, as you can see, that second stage, if I'm not mistaken, which is kind of awesome. So yeah, that first stage entry burn should be coming up in about a minute or so, maybe even less than that. And it's very important because without that, if you saw Starship, right, super heavy, that reentry with all of the plasma at the bottom of the engines, that's quite hot. This booster comes in much quicker than that. Super heavy has it very easy in comparison, so it needs the entry burn for in the case of Falcon 9.
Right. Wow, we're still able to see stage
It's so
2.
clear. I can see the reentry burn bright tonight, you guys.
Stage 1
And
entry
I can
burn
still
startup.
see second
That's the
stage
entry burn.
going downrange. Holy cow. Holy cow.
Beautiful weather.
It's
And there you can see the 3 engines firing, as Alex said, starting with that single uh, engine and then going into the line, which the fun fact Alex likes to share is
Stage 1
the
entry burn
line where the
shutdown.
line
Stage
is
1 FTS is saved.
from the fire is actually orthogonal to those 3 engines that are firing.
Yeah, when you see that line, it's not that the engines are in that line. It's actually 90 degrees off because of how the exhausts of all 3 engines interact with each other. It's kind of bonkers, I guess. But yeah, it's something that is very visible when it does an RTLS, when it returns to the launch site at the Cape, and you can see it because it's closer, right? It's closer to the ground and it's closer to
Stage 2 FTS
shore,
is
so
saved.
you can see it. And that means the flight termination system is now saved on the first stage.
Right. Now pay attention to kind of where that left grid fin is normally where we can start to see the drone ship at first, or
Stage 1
see the
transonic.
drone ship's lights.
Hopefully we get, I think this is ASOC, right? Yeah, I said it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a shortfall of gravitas, so hopefully we'll have some landing burn noise from the drone ship. Lately, SpaceX has been really good at sharing that, but it's 50-50. You can see there the light of the drone ship on the left hand side.
Stage 1
Yeah.
landing burn.
There we go.
There's that landing burn. That
I did see
single
another
center.
light to the right. I wouldn't be surprised
Stage
if
2,
that's
terminal guidance.
Ooh, look at that.
Stage 2's in terminal guidance. This is when I love at night, where you get that
Stage 1
deep
landing light
blue in
deploy.
the ocean.
It looks like maybe we don't have audio from SpaceX for this one. Ugh.
No audio and no video,
Stage 1
unfortunately.
landing
That's
confirmed.
rare. But there is
Well,
confirmation of a successful landing. That marks SpaceX's 375th successful landing of a Falcon booster and 34th consecutive landing of a Falcon booster. Meanwhile, the second stage is about to shut off with Seco 1. As always for these Starlink missions, this is just the first of 2 burns that it does. It'll now coast for about
Impact shutdown.
45 seconds. There you can see that shutdown. The stage will now coast for about 45 minutes before doing another very short burn of about 1 second long to raise the perigee. Then they will enter about another 15-minute coast phase before deploying those 24 Starlink V2 mini satellites a little after an hour after launch. And there is, I don't know, we always say it's Doss's favorite view, but he's said that he's never actually said this, but of an empty launch pad after a launch. That's what we want to see. Wow. It is crazy to think about how many times we have seen this year and how it's still exciting.
Yep. Someone was asking before, while the launch was happening, like, about the fairing recovery, because you know, it was very publicized when they were doing the net landings, but they no longer talk about that very much. They just fish them out of the water. They still have the parachutes, right? Those fairing halves just try to glide through the atmosphere using their rounded shape, right? Because it's like a surfboard kind of thing, right? So they can glide through the atmosphere, get their reentry speed down, and they pop up the parachute once they are down closer to the ground and just gently splash down in the ocean to be recovered. And for this one, I believe it is Doug.
Yeah,
That is the ship that is going to be retrieving those fairing halves.
cool. And Julia, how was that launch? That sound was incredible on stream. I can only imagine how that was in person.
Now I understand why a launch woke me up yesterday on a clear sky night. I hope it was what I advertised. It was beautiful. I was able to see the second stage still going downrange while the entry burn was happening. And that was without my camera. That was just with my own eyes. And that sound was amazing. And I am 12 miles away from the pad and I could still feel it. So I hope
Yeah.
you saw that in our coverage because the views I glanced down and saw from D were gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, it was like almost 2 minutes of audio. I was normally right, it's like a minute and 15 seconds. I'm just like, I'm not going to talk. I'll just let our audience hear the rocket. It sounds cooler than I do. Yeah, and D had tracking until landing burn, which was just insane. D, fantastic work. I see someone in chat wondering what the leaning thing is called. That is the transporter erector slash strongback. So, Alex, what is SpaceX going to do with that, uh, the TE to get it ready for the next launch? And when even is the next launch out of 39A?
Yeah, so as you can see right now, it's going up, and that is very normal. And it's also like dripping that white thing. That is also normal. They're just venting out all of the remaining propellant and everything, just trying to get that out. And you don't want that to stay there, essentially, right? So now the Stromback will go up again, as you can see there. It's already in that process. It'll stay there. A bunch of people will come back once the launch pad is saved, right? Because right now there are a lot of hazardous materials and conditions of the hardware, like I don't know, like pressurized tanks and whatnot that are active and everything. They want to save all of that. So within an hour or two, they may be able to come back to the pad and get ready to the very first thing that you can imagine is doing inspections, and then working on refurbishment, trying to repair whatever may have broken, whatever may need a fix out of this launch, right? Because it was a rocket launch. It packed a punch. You can see there that replay from Fleet Cam, and so in about a few days they'll bring it back down horizontal. They'll work on that from back, and then they'll raise it up, pick up the reaction frame, so to speak. It's the launch mount right at the bottom, and then that sort of a joint structure of both the stromback and the reaction frame will roll back to the hangar, and they'll integrate the next rocket on that transport reactor. That next launch out of here from LC-39A will be SXM-9. It's going to be the ninth satellite for Sirius XM. Probably a lot of people might have listened to the radio, and that'll be on December 5th at 11:10 a.m. Eastern is when the window opens. But that's from 39A. We'll have another launch out of here from the Cape, from Pad 40 in about 4 days from now, 3 days, at midnight on the 30th, essentially.
Yeah, I think that shot from Fleet Cam in general really highlighted SpaceX's cadence because there was definitely one. Are there one or two boosters at port right now?
I believe there's only one now. I think the other one
Okay.
was moved away earlier.
Yeah, well, so then there's one at port and one now on a drone ship back to port.
Yeah, let me take a look. Yeah, because they put the one you know what I mean, right? The one that they had at the dock, they put it back on the stand, and then it looks like they moved all the legs up. Yeah, it might have gone down horizontally. I don't. It's wide angle, so I cannot fully see it.
Yeah. Anyway, Flippers79 gifted a Red Team memberships, and then Bob gifted 5. Thank you both very much. And if you got one of those, make sure you check out our membership program. And then Musical Wolves is saying or is asking what happens during the coast phase before deployment. Not a whole lot. It's primarily getting the stage spinning. Um, so they rotate the stage about. Ooh, it's X or Y axis, so the long way around. And that allows for the satellites to have a little bit of different angular momentum each, that when they deploy those rods, uh, physics takes over, and the satellites with a little bit more angular momentum have a little bit more momentum. So then they slowly spread out, and then they're able to start deploying the satellites.
It's
I love
quite
this
funny
shot.
how
Oh,
you were probably gonna say the same thing. Go ahead.
let me guess about the blue in the exhaust.
Yes.
Yep.
How it turns blue as it goes up. That is one of the things that I really would like to see more research or something. Maybe there is, and I just haven't really worked my way to look it up. To be fair, I'm very busy most of the time, and SpaceX, as you can see there, launching a lot, kind of makes it hard.
Yeah, I know. I asked one of our members, Moldy Space, explained to me once that apparently RP1 burning, it has this like blue um, peak in its what is the graph called when you look the emission spectrum,
Yeah,
that it
emission.
has a blue area in its emission spectrum. It's just at night that it's able to be apparent, but I don't really know what is actually emitting the
She's
blue
watching.
light. Hi, Moldy. Anyway, here are some more shots. I am actually not sure which shot this is. Yeah, Moldy is saying it's got blue lines when the combustion is more complete. There's less black body radiation from soot, so the blue comes through. There you go. I see people smarter than Alex and I are able to answer that. Um, let's see. Going to looking for a few last minute questions while we continue to show the last of our replays. Um, Human is saying, yeah, it's been a while since we've had a loss of video from the drone ship. Yeah, it has been, but SpaceX was able to confirm that that landing was successful through the telemetry data. So I'm not sure what happened
Yeah,
there, but thankfully, booster was successfully recovered.
they have their telemetry, their sensors and whatnot, and look at that. That's from Julia. You can see there the change in the color. And I
Yeah,
it's is
that's
that
the
the
entry
afterburn?
burn. Wow.
Yeah, out there in the distance, in the horizon. There you go, full screen. Thank you, Kevin.
Very, very nice work, Julia.
With the lagoon and everything.
Cool. There we see the TE is now almost fully vertical. Um,
Okay, yeah, the booster is vertical. I thought it was horizontal. But hey, they have already retracted the legs. It was moved to
oh
that
yeah.
stand earlier today, and now the legs are folded, and they'll probably put it horizontal maybe in the morning or something.
It's pretty crazy how quick this process has gotten because it wasn't that long. I mean, it doesn't feel like that long ago that they were still removing the legs after every landing. But yeah, one at port now. That's rare these days. Normally there are like two. Oh. Okay, I think Dee's slow motion footage is ready that we will be showing their phenomenal footage as we close. So first, I want to thank Alex. Alex, thank you very much for dropping in and providing us with all of your commentary.
It's been a pleasure, and hopefully I'll see you all tomorrow. We have a very special NSF Live, and so you should tune into that.
Yeah. And then we had Julia on for a while, and Dee out in the field. And of course, producing today's stream was Kevin Michael Reed. I've been your host. I'm Trevor Sesnick, a writer for us. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Make sure you tune out into that stream tomorrow that Alex is hosting with a pretty exciting guest. So hopefully, I'll see you guys there. See you guys. Have a good night.
And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flighting down to SPD off. Bring in SPD off. Off. It's orange! Orange 45! Oh my god! Oh my god! Decollage. Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
If the methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?